How did that little bug say get involved in racing? How did that happen?
Blackmail.
Okay.
What happened was we were having a party here on the 4th of July.
Right.
And one of our friends, he was interested in a car that somebody where he worked drove, and so he wanted me to go to the races. Well, I didn't want to, and my wife, she cornered me in the kitchen and said, "We better go. You know how Bob is. I'm not giving you a last name, but." So I said, "Oh, all right, I'll go." You know, it was that race at intermission. I did go up to the press box and talk to them, and basically they said, "Well, you know, next week bring your camera with you. Go out, try it. If you like it, okay. If you don't, why, no harm done. You know, just do whatever." There were no inside guardrails, so you were basically bare out there. And you had visitors quite frequently. I worked with 15 feet off of the dirt. That was my standard area, approximately. And I worried more, especially later at night, of slipping on the grass, not being able to move. So again, I guess at both tracks I was the first one to introduce color.
Yeah.
Of the drivers and the rest of them.
What was the reaction when they first saw the color photos? Do you remember?
Well, according to my wife, they were really surprised or shocked. They were coming expecting they were going to get a black and white print, yeah, and there would be a color one of Victory Lane or whatever. One of our friend racers liked to terrorize the photographers too.
Not Tom Dill.
Yes, Tom Dill, to mention the name. He and I became fairly good friends, even though he was, at times I got so mad at him I would like to have strangled him for things he did. Tom Dill, like I said, he was a terror in more ways than one. You know, every track you go to's got their own story about Tom Dill, you know, jumping on a hood, stomping his foot through a windshield, and so on and so forth. And it really did happen. But he, one particular night, why he got loose and he came into the infield, and I started to run, and he kept coming and coming and coming. And he actually chased me clear to the flagpole, and then he went back out on the track. And I walked back down to the turn, and about the, I don't know, the third lap of the next race or something, I guess I had time to think about it or something, it dawned on me that, he was only like a foot off of me at times. One time when he did this, he actually touched the camera in my hand. But anyway, and I got to thinking, he couldn't have been that close to me and chased me that far without having that car under control. And I had a temper when I was young. I was a redhead, and there was fire there sometimes. So I walked out at the end of the race, in between races. I walked out into the pits, and I was like a banny rooster with a head rooster, you know. And I told him what I thought about him, you know, and I didn't appreciate it and all this and that and something, and he just stood there, a little bit of a grin on his face, you know. And I turned around and walked back out on the track, and then the next week, why, I walk into the pits, and he and his gang were there, and they were standing in front of their car, and they motioned for me to come over, and I shook my head no, because I was still ticked off at him. And come here, you know. And I don't remember which one of them, but he made 2 or 3 steps and says, "Come here a minute, you know, don't be like that, you know." So I come over here and I walk around the front of the car, and Tom's standing there like this, just looking at me, not saying a word. And I looked down, and printed in letters about this big was photographer catcher across the bumper. I said, "You SOB," and turned around and walked away. You know, but that was typical Tom Dill.
Yeah.
My regular article in the program, I'll let it out now officially. When I had something very special on my mind, there was a column that appeared. It was called Backfire. That the ghost is still alive. When we get to the late model feature, I said, I'd like to, you know, have the cars come out in the double row, and I said, widen out at the front in like a V. And I said, I want you to stand out in the middle of the track, and I want to lay between your legs and shoot the cars coming out of the turn, you know, ground up. Well, it's a neat picture, excepting there was one guy that didn't get the message.
Oh, no.
And when the V opened up, he come up through the middle. Well, Ed and I both scrambled, and it was close to one of us getting hit. One of the sportsman cars. And I've looked through the book, tried to remember what his name was. But one night at Erie's, he got into a wreck, but the car wasn't really wrecked. He came into the infield and it wasn't running, you know, like that. And as I said, I always went over and checked on him. I got there and I realized that he was in trouble. I really didn't know what the trouble was, but I was getting no response or anything from him, and I kind of stuck my head up in there, and I don't even know how I did it, to be honest with you, but I stuck my finger in his mouth, and he snapped out of it. He had swallowed his tongue, and the paramedics give me hell. They said, he could have bit your finger off. I said, well, he was choking to death, and he couldn't do anything. He was strapped in, you know, and I've heard more than once that so-and-so told me you saved his life, and he come the next week and, you know, thanked me. I said, hey, you know, it's nothing to it, you know. I'm glad I was there, you know. There's some people. Bruce Hordusky became kind of a favorite because when he first started out, he couldn't get around the track once without spinning out, hitting something or like that. Became a very good driver. Another one, Barton. I used to kid him that he spent as much time in the infield as I did. Because he would spin out, come in here, and I said, obviously you're doing a lot of things right now, and you know, everything's going good. You visit Victory. My recollection of you is that you were always visiting me in the infield. I said, did you have something on me or an attachment? He said, no, I didn't have no attachment to you. I can remember the first gal that raced up there, and brouhaha that was about that. She raced in the cadet class. Her husband had a car, and then she came out. She was a better driver than he was, but yeah,
Holly and Ed Osborne.
Yeah, Holly and Ed Osborne. Yep, that's. Well, I actually guess I never really thought about it. At the time I was doing it, it was both fun and a little extra income. Mm-hmm. You know, I think of myself as a little country boy that didn't do too bad.